Hello everyone and welcome back to QuicksaveTV. Today, in this Skyrim Tutorials, we're gonna go ahead and talk about one-handed weaponry. Now, I'll try to cover everything there is to cover about that. I even made some notes, just so I don't miss anything, but just excuse me if I forget something. I will sure to make a follow-up video. Now, let's just go ahead and talk about skill itself. Oh, I should have selected it before. Okay, one-handed weaponry. Armsman. The first skill unlocks with, in the beginning, 20 I think. One-handed weapons do 20% more damage. On the 5th level, it does 100%, they do 100% more damage. Now, this skill directly influences the DPS you deal. This skill, maxed out skill, is very useful for any kinda one-handed fighter. Whether you use two weapons at the same time, whether you use a weapon and a shield, whatever is the case, this skill is very, very useful. You should max it out. Then we go ahead in the main tree. We go to the fighting stance. Excuse me, too much coffee. Power attacks with one-handed weapons cost 25% less stamina. That's obviously very good, especially with conjunction with when you use two-handed weapons, like I mean dual wielding, when you use one weapon and both hands. Now we're gonna go ahead to critical charge. Can do a one-handed power attack that while sprinting that does double critical damage. Okay. Savage strike, standing power attacks do 25% bonus damage with chance to decapitate your enemies. I personally prefer savage strike, but that's just because I don't like swords very much in general. For someone who uses swords, we're going to talk about it just in a second, critical charge would be a very, very valuable solution, very, very valuable option. Savage strike is very useful for anyone because, in all honesty, when you fight with other one-handed or dual wield enemies, you don't really run around. You just stand and you fight. You run away when you have problems with your hit points and you just need to heal out or drink a potion. And then we have Finalizing Strike, which is kind of hard to perform, but nevertheless it has 25% chance to paralyze the target. You have to move backwards and perform a backwards power attack to have a 25% chance to paralyze the target. The paralyzed chance is gigantic, right? But it's not so easy to make this power attack because usually enemies get out of the range when you do that. Okay, that was the main tree. Now let's talk about dual wield in more detail. We have dual flurry. The dual wielding attacks are 20% faster, so in total it's going to be 40%. Now think about it. It's a very, very good DPS ability. It should be maxed out for anyone who likes dual wielding because it influences your DPS again, because you will be able to attack faster. It's very, very good. I mean, when you only put two weapons in both hands, you only benefit when you put a weapon in both hands. You only benefit when you do a double power attack. I'm going to talk a little bit about it also. But with dual flurry ability, you also benefit from dealing simple strikes with. You deal them faster. And we go ahead to dual savagery. Dual wielding power attacks do 50% bonus damage. Okay, now not to mention that the dual wielding attacks are just so strong on their own. The additional 50% bonus damage just make them really devastating. So you should really consider taking it. Now let's talk about each of the weapon types in more detail. As you might or might not know, in the Elder Scrolls V Skyrim there is 3 types of weapons. When we talk about close combat weapons, two-handed or one-handed, it doesn't matter. We have swords, axes, maces. Now how does it follow? Swords are the least damaging but the easiest to use, considering the stamina cost and considering how fast they attack. They are the fastest weapons. So we consider swords and daggers, okay, together, swords. Then we have axes, which are kinda in the middle between swords and maces. They are of an average attack, of an average attack speed, stamina consumption. And then we have maces, which have gigantic damage output. They are very, very slow on attack speed, and they consume a lot of stamina. Now we have let's just start with blades. Bladesman. Okay. Attacks with sword have 10% chance of doing critical damage. And the last level is going to be 30%. Great. 30% chance to do critical damage. Perfect. I think it's the same with bowmen. I think they're the same. Bladesman will highly benefit anyone who likes to rely on critical chance, especially assassins who wield a dagger and a sword in a side hand. Okay, so we have a dagger and we have a sword. We have this. Remember the sneak tutorial? You have 1200 damage? Let's say you have the armsman. maxed out. So now you have 2400 damage. Now you also have a 30% critical chance to deal more damage. Now it's going to be 3000 something. It's just crazy, right? Very good for anyone who's playing an assassin. Then we have the axe skill, hack and slash. Attacks with that war axes cause extra bleeding damage. Now, I'm gonna talk about these things and I'm gonna illustrate them. Bleeding damage is like a permanent poison on your axe without any enchantment. Whenever you attack the enemy with an axe, what's gonna happen essentially is the enemy gonna bleed out, and you don't really have to keep hitting him. You can just hide behind your shield and just go away, right? Very simple. Then we have Bonebreaker. Excuse me for that. Attacks with maces ignore 25% of armor. Bonebreaker will be very effective for DPS with a mace, since you cannot hit too often with your mace. You should make every hit matter, right? Okay, now we're finished with the skill tree. Now let's just continue. I hope we don't run out of time. I set up the alarm just in case, but let's just start with blades. We're gonna start with the blades. With blades, yes, we're gonna start with 2 blades. So what are 2 blades actually? You see, they are not what are you supposed to see? Blades are fastest to attack, easiest to attack, not so hard to attack with them, fast, very rapid attacks. And it's an example with 2 blades, right? You don't have to use 2 blades to have a rapid attack. They are in general very quick attacking. They are very good because of this speed of attack, and especially if you don't have a lot of stamina, it's a perfect solution for someone who doesn't, right? Because it's easier to attack with them. You don't have to torture yourself stamina wise. It's a good solution for a mage or a hunter who doesn't really likes to use the melee weapon too often, does use it sometimes. It's very effective. You can even consider taking a dagger because it's lighter, and it even has faster attack speed than the sword. Now let's continue to the let's just talk a little bit about this idea, what I was talking about. The backstab is very damaging. 30% chance with swords to deal additional critical damage is just insane because of this idea. If you are lucky enough and you get the critical attack with your swords, with your dagger, it's just gonna exceed the sky. It's gonna skyrocket, and you're gonna deal tremendous amount of damage. Even the hardest foes will fall before you. It's very easy to understand, and it just means in general that because of the limited damage of the sword, the critical hit attempts to compensate for it, and I think it does. Not as much as I would like it to do. I mean, it doesn't justify to have a swords, but if as an assassin character, it's very good to have swords just because of this general idea that they can do this critical chance, and every third backstab you do can just become tremendous amount of damage. So we have a sneak attack and backstab at the same time. Let's just now continue to talk about maces. Maces, I personally believe, are the best weapons for dual wield because of their armor penetration. They are the hardest also because of they are really heavy weapons in general. Maces are very heavy, very hard to wield because of these things. If you have big reserves of stamina, like I do for example, you can perform dual attack with maces, which is gonna just devastate your opponents because of this ignoring of the enemy armor. No matter how much armor enemy has, you're gonna rip through it and just tear the enemy apart. It's harder to use because it consumes more stamina, but it's very effective in general, and it's very good. It doesn't have any critical chance or whatsoever. It just have this ignoring the armor ability, which is really strong, very good ability, very powerful. So you should really consider it. Now we go to the war axes. Where is it? Yeah, here's the war axes. War axes, I believe, is the best weapon to use with a shield, and I'm actually going to illustrate that. Okay, so we have a shield and an axe. Why is it good? As a shieldman, you usually hide behind your shield when things get hairy, right? And in general, you prefer to be behind your shield to defend against enemy attacks. Now, since you spend so much time behind your shield, you don't really have a lot of time to deal the damage to the enemy. So the best thing is to cut the enemy once and let him bleed out. Then do the same thing again, hide behind the shield. Do the same thing again, hide behind the shield. Attack, hide behind the shield. Attack again, hide behind the shield. Attack, hide, bash, attack, hide, bash, attack, hide, bash, attack, hide. You get the idea. What's good about that is that you don't really have to keep there. You don't have to be there to deal the damage to the enemy. It's like you poison the enemy, And that's it. You don't need to do anything else. Axe becomes a very useful weapon in this sense because you can use it effectively with in conjunction with a shield. Because you don't have to stay there to deal this damage. You just hit once and stay back. Ignore the enemy's hits because you're behind the shield, right? You're perfect. If enemy goes over eager, just stagger him again with a shield. Just punch him again with an axe and hide behind the shield again. This way, even the strongest enemies will just bleed out before you. You don't even have to kill them, actually. They're just going to bleed out. So, that's the general idea. Okay, did I miss anything? No, so again, to conclude, we have 3 types of weapons in Skyrim. We have swords, axes, and maces. Swords are the fastest, least hitting, and least stamina consuming. Axes are medium in all of these characteristics. They have medium speed, medium damage, and medium stamina consumption. And then we have maces, which are the slowest weapons, however the hardest hitting, and consume the most stamina with each power attack. We consider only power attacks for stamina attacks, okay? Only they consume stamina. Simple attacks like this don't deal a lot of damage, but they don't consume stamina. Now, I was talking about some theories how to use your weapons. I was talking about the 2 sword, but how to sword. Sword in the left hand and the dagger in the right hand. I don't have a dagger, I'm really sorry for that, but the idea is in the right hand you have a dagger, in the left hand you have a sword to deal additional damage. The dagger is for backstabs, the sword is for damage in case the things get hairy. Then another theory about shield, what is it, war axe, and the shield, the axe and the shield. The idea behind this is to make your enemy bleed out and hide behind the shield, since the axe has a bleeding ability. And the 2 mace, probably the hardest to use, the most experimental, but if you have big stamina reserves, you're gonna just tear your enemy to pieces with this power attack. Okay, on this, we're gonna conclude this tutorial. If there's gonna be more questions or more interesting questions, and sometime later, of course I will answer these questions, but sometime later I would like to make the videos about each weapon type to support my theories with actual videos and, you know, footage on the master's difficulty settings. So, yeah, I thank you very much for watching. Thank you very much for joining us. We're gonna talk about two-handed weapons in just a moment. It was great having you here. Subscribe and like if you liked it, share with your friends, and of course, come back for more videos. Have a great day, and bye-bye.